Get into chatbots. What's your angle?
Yeah, like I think for most of the people that I talk to in chatbots, I've come to the realization that a lot has go wrong in your life before you end up in chatbots, right? So I always wanted to be a novelist, so I enjoyed writing, and I was writing lots of fiction. I wrote a manuscript and handed it over to
Wait, what's it called? What's it called?
it. Yeah,
The
the
theater.
theater, yeah. And so I handed it over to a bunch of publishers, and they were like, "Yeah, just leave." So I did, and I gave up on that a little bit. And then I figured I liked writing, so what can I do to at least tell my mom I've got a job? So I figured I'd become a copywriter, and but I didn't work in advertising. Most copywriters do, but I worked at a startup incubator here in Amsterdam at the Science Park. So I learned about technology and all these tech startups, which is really interesting. And then I had like a video streaming startup myself, which failed miserably, and I got fired from my own company. And then I got a job in customer service, doing social media and finding luggage all over the world for passengers that were stranded. And then when chatbots became a thing, I was like, hey, I can figure this out because I understand the service space and I understand the technology and I know how to write dialogue from writing fiction, right? So we put that together, and that's how I started doing chatbots. And yeah, that's how I got into it. How did you start? You're a screenwriter.
Yeah, I went to film school, 20 years ago or so, and had dreams of becoming a filmmaker. And for years, I wrote screenplays.
Hey, Jason. Hey, man.
Oh,
Hey,
hey,
what's up?
Hans, what are you doing,
Yeah, I
man?
mean, today's the day. We're finally doing this. You didn't get
Today's Hans in the
today's
Botman?
House of the Botman. It's amazing. Yeah,
Oh,
because remember
that's
we
great.
sent out that little trailer, the teaser, and we shared it on LinkedIn and on Twitter, and like everybody from all over the world are reaching out and they want to be part of it, and they're sending in bots, and it's really cool. It's really happening. People are excited.
I'm, I'm very excited. Look at me. I'm shaking.
Yeah, yeah,
Really,
yeah.
I'm
But
just.
you were reading a book. What were you reading?
Uh, what computers still can't do.
Hmm. Interesting.
So it was more of a prop than an actual book, I think, because I don't know how to read. So
Somebody showed me like a tote bag recently, and it said, like on the tote bag for a conference, it said, "What do we want? Chatbots. When do we want them?" Sorry, I didn't get the question.
that's funny,
Yeah.
man.
So, how are you holding up in Corona land there?
My life hasn't changed a bit at all, actually. In fact, I'm getting to know my wife for the first time in 12 years, and my children. I now know their names. It's amazing.
Wonderful.
I didn't know.
Uh,
Yeah. So, Hans, we're here to talk about chatbots, man.
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What's how did okay? Let's start off with what how did you get into chatbots? What's your angle?
Yeah. Like I think for most of the people that I talk to in chatbots, I've come to the realization that a lot has go wrong in your life before you end up in chatbots, right? So I always wanted to be a novelist, so I enjoyed writing, and I was writing lots of fiction. I wrote a manuscript and handed it over to
Wait, what's it called? What's it called?
it was called the theater. Yeah.
The
The
theater.
theater, yeah. And so I handed it over to a bunch of publishers, and they were like, "Yeah, just leave." So I did, and I gave up on that a little bit. And then I figured I liked writing, so what can I do to at least tell my mom I've got a job? So I figured I'd become a copywriter. And but I didn't work in advertising. Most copywriters do, but I worked at a startup incubator here in Amsterdam at the Science Park. So I learned about technology and all these tech startups, which is really interesting. And then I had like a video streaming startup myself, which failed miserably, and I got fired from my own company. And then I got a job in customer service, doing social media and finding luggage all over the world for passengers that were stranded. And then when chatbots became a thing, I was like, hey, I can figure this out because I understand the service space and I understand the technology and I know how to write dialogue from writing fiction, right? So we put that together, and that's how I started doing chatbots. And yeah, that's how I got into it. How did you start? You're a screenwriter.
Yeah, I went to film school, 20 years ago or so, and had dreams of becoming a filmmaker. And for years, I wrote screenplays, directed music videos, did commercials and things like that. And then a few years ago, I think it was 2014, I responded to an ad for an interactive screenwriter. And I was like, this sounds interesting. And so I went there, and it turned out to be a conversation design position, but it just they didn't know what a conversation designer was at that point, or it wasn't a known type of profession. But I fell in love with it,
Yeah.
and for me, it's an entirely new art form. Like creating characters, crafting characters, like chatbots to me is an extension, and it includes within it theater, writing, so many different disciplines and so many different art forms. But it's a whole new art form.
Yeah.
And I think we're still kind of pioneers in that art form, as opposed to, like, I guess I could have been a mediocre filmmaker, but now I'm a mediocre conversation designer, but there's so few of us that I'm actually kind of well known about it. So
Yeah, that is
I
kind of
figured
cool.
that if I'm going to be mediocre at something, I might as well be mediocre at something obscure.
Yeah, that is a very good point. Yeah, and I think the world's going to need many more conversation designers, right? That's, I think, the way every enterprise is now building in-house teams around conversation design, just like they did with mobile before, right? And so we need find millions of people eventually going to be conversation designers. So that's kind of exciting to be at the forefront of that and sort of helping people out and trying to get better chat, ridding the world of shitty chatbots. I guess that's the mission now, and inspiring others to join us in that mission, right?
Yeah, I mean, you have obviously the Conversation Academy, which I think is a great place to start if you want to get, let's say, certified in conversation design. For me, just talking to bots, just spending the day getting to understand the types of bots out there, understanding what they can do, some of the best ones like Mitsuku and stuff like that, and then going to enterprise bots. Hanging out on LinkedIn. I met a lot of really cool
Yeah.
people on LinkedIn that are in the space and are just looking for other conversation designers. So I think anyone who's dealing in linguistics, in theater, in writing, even customer service, like all these people can find their way into conversation design. And
Yeah.
I think that it's really the profession of the future.
Yeah, because there's
So,
not just one conversation designer, right? So we're actually supporting 3 certificates now where we sort of see 3 different roles. So there's the AI trainer, which is more involved with the technology, training the language models, implementing stuff, and going over the analytics. These are often people with a background in data science or a background in customer service, because people in customer service are used to looking stuff up in complicated systems. They've got the conversation designers that obsess over the structure of a conversation and human centricity, and they validate it with users. So these are people with a UX background. And then you've got people that are conversational experts that focus more on personality, on psychology, on driving strategy a bit more. These are people with a writing background in theater, screenwriting, copywriting. So you sort of see these team build up of different personalities and different backgrounds already. So there's not just even one conversation designer anymore.
right. No, it's a good thing. And I think that also talking to a lot of people in the enterprise space, we had a meetup a few weeks ago, and we had someone from Oracle on there, Grant Ronald,
Oh, right.
and they were talking about the importance of personality. And I think everyone is coming around to the fact that chatbots need to have some form of personality. They need to be engaging to the audience. They need to be not necessarily extreme personality, but there needs to be characteristics there in order for the user to be engaged and to want to stay on. You guys have it down to a science, obviously, at the Conversation Academy. For me, it was about trial and error and learning all these things over the years. But
Yeah.
I'm really excited about the bots that we have to review today, because we have a mixed bag.
Yeah.
We really do. We have some bots that are sort of amateurish and people that are just having fun. We have some enterprise bots. We have some utility bots, and we even have an open domain one from the Alexa Prize.
Yeah,
so it's going to be a mixed
Yeah,
bag
there's
today.
a little bit of everything. And what's interesting is that some people that you would expect that sort of take their bot building very seriously, you would expect them to send it in. But some people are still a little bit afraid. So I do want to appeal here a little bit and tell everybody that just send in your work. Like, we can make it anonymous. We just want to talk about content and create content around it. So just keep sharing it. And we've got Vietnamese bots, we got Spanish bots, we got Italian bots. So yeah, I'm very thankful for Google Translate, because it turns out that I can have an opinion on a Vietnamese chatbot just by using Google Translate. So yeah, we'll talk about that one in a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, I know. You know, when I started out making films 20 years ago, the hardest thing, because it was the digital transformation, was getting people to watch your film.
Yeah.
It was easy to make a film. And now I feel the same way when it comes to chatbots. It's easier and easier to make a chatbot, but getting people to actually talk to your chatbot, which I think is the most important part, because you need that feedback. You need that feedback loop, that constant improving of the bot and optimizing it. So, like, I don't understand why more people don't send in their bots. We're nice people.
We're
Look at
very
us.
nice
We're
people.
super nice. Yeah. I mean,
I don't know what you're holding there, but oh, like a little shrub.
It's
beautiful.
That's
great.
Yeah,
no, we're
sorry.
very kind. Like, we'll see how this goes, and I think these first episodes will get more people to send in their voice experiences, chatbots. It can be anything. Even if you got self-driving cars and you want to figure out what the interaction there should be, we're happy to talk. If you got a theme park with robots walking around talking to your guests, you can send it in. It's great. Anything that is a technology-driven conversation is something that requires conversation design, and is something that we could talk about on this show.
Yeah, and I think that we can help people. Hopefully, that's our goal.
We can at least have fun.
To help people.
We can entertain them.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Well, I mean, people need entertainment. There's nothing to do anymore. You know, it's either this or Zoom in with your school teacher or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't do that. That's you. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So we just want to pull up like the first bot that we're going to talk about. What's on our list?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So number one on our list, let's take a look, is we have the company name is Helper, and the bot is named Pearson, and it's a studying skills assistant sent to us by, I cannot pronounce this name, so you're going to have to do it.
Who was sent in? Yeah, I can pull that up real quick.
And we'll put the link in the comments. And first of all, I want to give, is it Hop? How do you pronounce Jaap?
Jaap. Jaap Koelewijn. Jaap Koelewijn. He's a great guy. He used to be a teacher. And you can tell, but when I met him, that, he would be an exciting teacher to, like, I would show up in class if he was there. But obviously it happens a lot with good teachers that they find other stuff to do. So he became an entrepreneur, and then joined the world of conversational AI. And now he's sort of creating chatbots for the educational system, which is kind of cool.
Well, I just want to say, first of all, good job for the bravery and the courage. You're the first one that sent in a bot.
Yeah.
And so he kind of set the tone for everyone else. And I had a really fun time talking to his bot. And so I'm going to throw on the screen right now just a quick a video screenshot that I took. And I'll talk about some of the things that I really loved, and then I'm going to let you go into more of the scientific stuff of the bot. The things that I loved about this bot, first of all, it had a name, right? First of all, its name is Pearson. And that's a cool name for a bot. I like the name Pierce Brosnan. It's a
classy.
Cool name for a
it's
bot.
Classy.
Yeah, it's a great. So he understands that it needs to have character. That's very important. And there's this really cool thing that if you hover over the little icon, there's a little robot icon of Pierce, and he kind of raises his hand and does like that and stuff like that. And then when you minimizes it, it goes down to the bottom of the screen, but it's in a funny way, and you can wave at it. It's a very great way to discover and engage with a bot. I don't see it that often. Sometimes I see messages that pop up automatically. With Pierce, it was just very non-intrusive. And I love the characterization of the bot. I love the little icon. And the actual chatbot itself, for me, the best part were the, I think they're called the brain maps or the learning maps. Or whatever.
So maybe take it back a little bit of what this bot actually does, right? So it's a studying skills assistant. That's what they call it. But it has all these different ways of how do you study, what's a good technique, and sort of mind mapping type interactions are in there, and it just helps students sort of make it easier for them to just study the stuff they need to study, right? I think that's sort of the premise here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I enjoyed the mind map. That was the word I was looking for, the mind map, the little drawing, and you can go on it and there's a video there. There's also a video there of how to summarize stuff. So it's a very useful bot. To me, the only thing I would say is lacking right now is a bit more conversational, make it a bit more, because the minute you sort of go off the rails and start asking it questions, it basically kind of drives you back to, okay, well, this is what I can do, which is okay. That's the way bots should be. But
Yeah.
to me, as someone who comes from, I want to talk and I want to engage, like I would love it to have more like one-liners that you could answer. And that's easy. I think Yap can easily add those one-liners in. It's not a big deal. Question is whether he should. And that's the issue maybe that you can answer. Does this, since this is specifically designed to help students study, do you really want to go into areas of like, oh, okay, are you a bot, or tell me a joke, stuff like that? What are your
Yeah.
thoughts?
So I mean, in general, personality is always great because you need personality for consistency, etc. Do you also need to add small talk, jokes, chit chat, right? One of the things to consider, and particularly with this bot Pierce, is that it needs work on just training the language model, right? So if you just said mind map, I just typed in mind map. It just as an open question, it doesn't recognize that, even though that's the best content it has, right? Um, so there's a lot of things that it doesn't recognize. So that's why you want to have personality, because personality builds rapport. When there's chit chat and there's fun stuff, then people become more forgiving when it's not really working, right? So if you just have a bot and you ask it a question and it's dumb, you leave it. You don't want to talk to it ever again. But if you also have a good experience, then you are more forgiven when it sort of fails on you a little bit. What is important, though, is that when people ask a serious question, you need to give a serious answer. So when people ask for fun, you need to give them fun. Fun in equals fun out, but you don't want to mix it up. So when somebody has like a serious thing, don't answer by telling them a joke, right? That's where you go wrong. But in general, when you got a chatbot that needs a lot of help, work on the AI training, it helps to have some personality in there, because it just builds a relationship and keeps people engaged and makes them more forgiving.
Wow, that's a great point. I hadn't even thought about that, but that's amazing. Yeah, that's so true. And I think in Pierce's case, Pearson, it has great beginnings. It has the seed, the potential there to be an amazing. I just want to know more about Pearson. And then I think, like you said, also adding the ability to get to the mind map and to the videos
Yeah.
to navigate to those is also a nice feature. But overall, I'd say it's a great starting point, and I think that it's useful. And I'm all about AI and chatbots that help people.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're out there making chatbots that help people, you're doing good. So
Yeah.
he gets points for that. And I think if he's reviewing the conversations that I've had, he'll see what I asked it. And I think with a few tweaks and a little bit of small talk, Pierce can be an amazing
Yeah, and
bot.
already gave some feedback via LinkedIn to the guys as well. But what I like about it is that with some of the stuff that they're doing, they are aware of some of the challenges that they have, right? So they start by, I'm a bot, might be new to some people. Do you need me to explain how it works? And then later on, there's a few things where you can tell that they've identified some of the issues that we've identified as well, but the solutions weren't always as elegant as they could be. So you can really tell that these guys are taking this on as a very serious project, that they're creating a bot that has good value for potentially millions of students. And it just needs a little love, right? Algorithms need parents too.
Yeah. Oh. You're like a bank of one-liners of your on Fuego, like the one last week about every good chatbot, every bad chatbot has a good chatbot inside of it. That one is going viral.
That one should be on a T-shirt. Yeah, I think these
Yeah.
are like two one-liners. That's it. But I'll come up with more. We
Is
should
that
have a
it?
few. I was also thinking, no, we can do that different times. Like, do a bunch of stand-up stuff here, share some jokes, create chatbot jokes and
I
stuff.
don't think anybody wants me sharing. I have a bunch of dad jokes. That's
We'll do
about
that
all I
after
have.
the
So
show then.
I don't, anybody wants to hear the dad jokes that I have here. So okay, uh, so great job, Yap and team on creating Pearson the bot. We're going to move on to our next bot, which is the Vietnamese
The
bot.
Vietnamese bot. I love the Vietnamese bot.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan.
The Vietnamese bot. Now, walk me through this, because I went and I played and I took Google Translate and I tried to figure out the flow and everything. Why don't you walk me through what the purpose of this bot is, what it's supposed to do, and then I'll tell you about what I liked about it.
Yeah, so we've got a Vietnamese chatbot on our hands. So we reached out, and the internet was like, "Hey, send me your bots," thinking, this just probably a bunch of English written bots showing up there. But no, we've got Vietnamese chatbots, which is a wonderful experience altogether. So what this bot does is actually see what kind of loans you qualify for, right? So I don't know. So you can't. You need some extra cash. This bot sort of questions and give you an indication of how much you could actually borrow and get a loan for, right? Um, so it's kind of fun. I had fun playing around with it, and I'll open it up real quick again. And what I discovered is that in conversation design, a lot of stuff is about taste and creativity and persona and fun. But there's also fundamental design principles, best practices of how you should structure a conversation, right? And that has a lot of times you'll see the pattern where it's an acknowledgement, which is like an okay, check, yes, where you sort of indicate that you're actually listening to the user. Particularly in voice is important. Then there's a confirmation where you're sort of repeating what the user just said, right? So that the user knows that you understood it properly. And then there's always like a prompt with a question at the end that is used for turn taking to let the user know that it's their turn to speak.
It's their
again,
turn, right?
And that's sort of the pattern that you see. So if you sort of go through a Vietnamese chatbot, that's something you can check for, right? So we just use Google Translate to do that. And it was kind of fun. So I'll sort of go to the top of the conversation.
Yeah, it was fun, and I found it. First of all, I found it very helpful and useful. I mean, if I were ever in Vietnam and I needed to get a loan or a mortgage, I would go to this bot.
Yeah, definitely.
Obviously.
Oh yeah, this would be my go-to bot.
Over all the other Vietnamese loan bots. I mean, I wouldn't trust any of those. This one is the one I would
Yeah,
go to.
last time I went to Vietnam and got a mortgage, like I feel like I got ripped off a little bit. So
yeah, if you had talked to this bot, it might have been a different story altogether. So yeah, no, I think that first of all, it also it addressed me as by my name. It said, "Hey, Jason F. Gilbert, do you want to?" So I kind of felt like sometimes I feel creeped out by that a bit when they take the name from.
yeah,
I guess this was on Facebook, so I like to get the name in the way you would get it normally is by asking someone, but that's okay. I mean, in this case, it knows my name from Facebook. It takes my name and then it guides me through. And the flow there is very easy to go through. It's a very,
yeah.
From what I see in English, it looks very well, very concise, very succinct. So the copy there is clean.
Yeah, so it said, "Good afternoon, my name is BorrowBot, a virtual assistant who specializes in giving you unsecured loans. Let's find out about borrowing products of BorrowBot." I think the borrowing product is just a bad translation, right? But that's brilliant. We're off to a good start here. And then it has like 3 different buttons, right? So what I don't like there, so it has like a very good introduction. It's very clear of what value this bot delivers and what I can do here as a user. And then it just gives me 3 buttons, which no need to translate now. But it doesn't ask the question, right? So what it's doing here is actually using the button itself as a design thing, which I don't really like. So our philosophy is always that it's totally fine to use buttons in chatbots, but you need to earn them, right? So you need to figure out what the conversation would be without buttons, right?
Also, because for many reasons, you're right, and I agree with you. They're not voice ready in a lot of cases sometimes.
Yeah.
But
so
another point is, if you have buttons, sorry, Hans.
Go ahead.
Buttons, and then you have a free text window there, but you're not really going to accept any free text that's written in there. Why even have it? Just turn it off. Just leave the buttons there, and then just let the users choose one of the 3. Because if you're going to give them the option of saying inputting free speech, then you have to account for it. And that was the one thing I found was like, okay, if I go through the flow, it's amazing. The flow's really nice. It gets me a loan. It calculates how much I need to pay each month. But if I ask it, what's your name, or it just doesn't, So that's again, the same issue that I had with the previous bot is if it could have more conversational abilities and more of a personality. I don't even think it has a name, right? Is BorrowBot that's just what it does? It helps you borrow. It's not an actual name.
No. They've given them? Yeah. So. Yeah. So they could do more, and I think a lot of times it's difficult to convince management at enterprise that personality is very important. They sort of see it as an add-on later on, but it's actually fundamental for everything that you do because it helps you just write better in general, because you can always think like, how would in the former example, how would peers actually say this if it's a well-defined character, right? So it helps you with the writing, it makes people more forgiving, and it makes it more engaging. What we have here in general, my point with the buttons here is that, it gives you a statement. Let me pull that up real quick again, where it says, I help people find loans, and then it gives you 3 buttons: cash loan, this or that. It would be much more conversational to say, I help people find perfect loans. Would you like a cash loan, a mortgage, or whatever the option is? And then you have the buttons, right? And then it becomes much easier to just select the button. But by using the button, they're actually killing the conversation. So what we always recommend is, do sample dialogue, right? Just have the conversation out loud, having it together, sort of improvising that to find out what the most natural structure of a conversation is. And then you figure it out by voice. And to figure this problem out by voice, you actually have to say what the 3 options are, right? Are you interested in A, B, or C? And then you have buttons A, B, or C.
Well, at that point, why do we even need buttons? If you're saying A, B, and C, and you're just giving them the options, you can easily account for most of what people are saying. There's no need. I mean, I guess buttons are easier as people navigate, and there's a whole debate, and we'll have a whole other episode about buttons versus non-buttons. We're not going to get into that. Don't worry. Everyone knows I'm anti-buttonite, so. But the thing is that your prompt was very clever because it gave them 3 options. Of course, users could choose anything they want, but once you narrow it down to those 3 options, they're naturally going to choose one of the 3.
Yeah, so a lot of times people use buttons to camouflage the fact that they didn't know how to solve it through design, right? And so you need to solve the design problem. And then, buttons might just be easier because, it lowers the barrier for people that just want to go fast. If they're highly motivated, they just want to go as fast as possible. And then a button is very helpful. But you should never use a button to camouflage the fact that you haven't figured out how to design it. But I think
that's a gem right there. That should be highlighted. That's a gem. It's true.
Should that be a t-shirt?
That should be a t-shirt, and it should be framed behind in your office.
And then, let's see, and then I'll look at the other. I'll do the other prompt here, the second one from the Vietnamese bot. And what's funny here, what I see is that the Vietnamese bot, when somehow Vietnamese, you just use many more words than you would in English, because I think it adds like 10 words if I did a translation for English. So the next prompt is, if your minimum monthly income is around 3 million, you can easily get a cash loan from the bot. Can you tell me what your monthly income is? And then it just allows you to click, right? So the question is, can you tell me what the monthly income is actually a yes or no question. So just saying, what's your monthly income, right? If you make around 3 million, it's easy to get a loan. What's your monthly income? And then, it has like 3 categories of buttons that you can select from. It makes it a little shorter. It makes it a bit more conversational. And it actually asks the question that you want to ask. So the bot flows very nicely. And but yeah, based on fundamental techniques, you can smoothen it out a little bit and add a bit more persona here.
Let's take a quick shift over to some voice bots, because we're not just going to analyze some text bots. Let's do some voice bots. And we had 2 very interesting voice bots this week. The first one is the horoscope bot sent in to us. Did you have a chance to talk to it?
Yeah, but it made me very uncomfortable about my future.
Hey Google, talk to what's my zodiac sign?
Welcome. You will get your horoscope within 10 seconds. What is your date of birth?
September 16th.
Hi, beautiful Virgo. Here is your horoscope of today. If a friend or loved one is in a bind right now, you need to fight the urge to swoop in and save them like a superhero. It's not that you should abandon someone you care about, it's just that this person needs to figure their own way out of this mess. If they got themselves into it, they should get themselves out of it. If they ask for your help, give them logic, not flattery. They need to face reality today so they won't make the same mistake tomorrow.
That's it? You're gone?
Okay.
Yeah,
I
so
have a
couldn't
lot of
sleep
good
that
things
night.
to say about this bot. First of all, I like the guy who created this bot, the bot developer. You go in there, and it's basically what it does is it gives you your daily horoscope. But it starts off with this like mystic, new agey kind of music that puts you into the mood, and I love that. And I think that more voice experiences need to incorporate sound effects and different sound, using sound in different ways to improve the experience and make it more immersive. I think that makes it much more immersive to have all of a sudden I feel like I'm talking to Cleo or one of these psychics on TV. So it's like, okay, your daily horoscope, and then it asks for your for your birthday, and then it says, okay, lovely Aquarius, and it was like, wow, I'm lovely, thank you, that was very nice of you to tell me I'm lovely. And then it went into
That's enough for you? You don't get enough
oh,
love,
man.
If
I'll take a
that's-
compliment anywhere I can get it. Let me tell you, man. So it walks you through it gives you your horoscope for, I guess it's for the day, and that's it. And for what it does, for its purpose, it's a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I tried asking it some questions again to try and gauge what else it can do other than, there wasn't much. There was a bit of small talk. It knew how to answer some questions. It didn't know how to answer all of them. But the idea here is that it made me smile. And I think that if a chatbot or voice bot can get you to smile, or then it's good.
If I can imagine sort of getting out of bed, going to the kitchen, making my cup of coffee, and getting my horoscope, and if that moment it puts a smile on my face, then I'm happy. Then it's a great way to start the day, right? So it primes you for the rest of the day. So that's a very helpful, useful experience.
So my opinion is, if you were to take that horoscope and then break it down into questions, or break it down into steps, into layers, and make it more conversational, I think that would be a much more conversational experience. It doesn't feel very conversational is my main issue with it. It's a lot of fun, and it does exactly what it's supposed to do. It's in that sense, it's a good chat bot. But I would love to have a conversation with it. Like maybe if at the end it asks me, so does that sound like it's accurate for you? Even if it doesn't have a follow-up for that, that's already an exchange that we're having that wants me to continue the next day with the spot. So that's my...
Yeah, so it sort of has the standard set of the Q&A. It gives you a little horoscope. I assume that's all science-based, and I can imagine.
Of course it's science-based, man. It's, it's astronomy.
So they did all of
astrology.
that, but then it's the QA. So the next step is to now make this more conversational, create more persona around it, and turn it into a full conversational experience with audio, sonic branding around it.
Yeah, I think it could be it is a lot of fun. I think it could be even better if you have just a bit more conversation there. I would love to use that. I would use it.
Yeah.
I would use it. I check my horoscope. Not every day, but
What did it say for today?
I haven't checked today yet, but it said you'll probably be staying home a lot. That's my guess.
How are you holding up? Yeah, it's terrible, right? I can't even remember the last time I went to a restaurant. Do you know the last time you went to a restaurant?
Well, I'm notoriously cheap, so I don't take my wife out anymore to restaurants. So
That's probably in Düsseldorf. That was like your last restaurant.
Yeah, when we did the Toby hackathon for Vodafone. Yeah,
that was great.
It was a good time. Yeah. So
shit, we're losing.
Okay, yeah, it's not his fault. We're just been cooped up inside for too long. People, don't blame anyone. So the last spot we're going to do today is one that I don't know if you know about this. Do you know about the Alexa prize competition, the Alexa skills competition?
Yeah. So it's like they're awarding prizes to people that create cool stuff, right?
Well, it's specifically they're trying to create a social bot, and so what they're doing is you go in and you say, and let's do it in a second. You say, Alexa, let's chat.
Welcome to the Alexa Prize.
Do you hear that?
University competition to advance AI. It's semifinals for these social bots, and your ratings help determine who makes it to the finals. I'll get you a social bot now. When you're done, say stop, and I'll ask you for your rating. Hi, this is an Alexa Prize social bot. I've got a feeling that tonight's gonna be a good night, and that I have chatted with you before. Is the latter true?
What's your name?
My name? So here's the thing. It's a secret.
Why is it a secret?
It's just that the Alexa prize is anonymous, so I can't really tell you my name. But I promise I will tell you when the competition is over. I'm curious to know more about you. Let me ask you. I could eat some strawberries. I'm sure you love them too, right?
How are you capable of eating strawberries? You're a robot.
Oops, I'm sorry. I don't know the answer.
Oh, okay. Goodbye.
Oh, God.
Goodbye? So I guessed wrong. Anyway, what's your most beloved food?
Stop.
Yeah.
Thanks for chatting. Quick question.
This is
On a
important.
scale from 1 to 5 stars,
What do you think?
how do you feel about speaking with this social bot again?
I'm going to give it 3 stars, and I'll tell you why I'm going to give it 3 stars.
I was thinking 3 too.
Okay.
But I
Got
have
it.
no argument.
Anything else you'd like to tell the university team about your experience?
No, thank you. We're good. Goodbye, Alexa. Stop. Cease.
Got it.
Desist.
To try another
No,
social bot,
stop.
Just say,
Just go away.
let's chat.
Alexa.
Okay. Don't say that word again.
All
We
right,
got
come
her
on.
off. Okay, so as you can tell, that's a lot of fun, and especially if you're stuck at home right now and there's not much to do. I think there's 5 or 6 of these social bots that you can go and talk to, and they're open domain. You can talk to them about anything, and there's some really cool stuff there. Like sound-wise, the way she was like when I asked her what's your name, she was like, "Shh, I can't tell you."
Yeah,
She
that was
whispered.
great.
Like, how do I design that in my voice experience for the voice to shift to a whisper like that? And then she had one of the lines she said was and I'm like, anytime the bot says or it always makes me feel like, oh, this is real, this is amazing, this is a great experience. So in a lot of ways I love these social bots, but as you can tell, you can easily kind of find the flaws and find the you know where it breaks down. But it's a lot of fun, and I got to give these people credit for trying.
Yeah, I mean, it's great that they're already doing this, and a lot of times these voice bots are very easy to break, which I mean should never be your goal. I guess you just sort of undergo it, but it sort of gives you a glimpse of what we're gonna have in the future, right? Where there's more attention for audio, where you're gonna have the pauses and the ums and the ahs to make it more human-like. So yeah, I would definitely give it a 3-star here because it excites you about what's coming next, right?
Yeah.
And I think that it's very important for all of us that we're not criticizing these things too much, but are actually celebrating people pushing the envelope, right? And sometimes they break, sometimes they don't. Let's all get better at this together.
And my biggest, my biggest complaint about the Alexa Skills Prizes is that they all had to use Alexa's voice. Now, if you changed that voice and let them use any other type of voice, even if it's one of the AWS Poly voices, or if they had recorded someone doing it and then somehow synthesized that voice, the fact that it's Alexa talking to you is actually kind of distracting because I know Alexa from a different context. I don't know her from this context. This is me talking to a social bot named, I don't know the name, it has to remain anonymous, which is okay, understandable. That's part of the competition. But it's still in Alexa's voice. One of the things about Anna, the bot that I'm working on, is that she has her own voice, and shifting the voice all of a sudden shifts the experience entirely. So if we can imagine that same experience with maybe, I don't know, a young teen voice or an older man speaking, it's a completely different experience.
Yeah. And it influences so much. So we work closely with a company called Reed Speaker. Do you know them? They create artificial voices for brands. It's great. So we sort of have like a community together where it's called ARC. So we've got AMP that does the sonic branding here in Amsterdam. So they create all the sound around it. And then Reed Speaker creates the voices. Robocopy obviously does the design, and then Chat Layer powers the technology. So we're sort of teaming up there to create these most natural voice experiences. But there's so many dependency to get it right, and it's so easy to break still.
Yeah,
right?
but it's still fun. And the fact in the beginning she had that little pitch shift thing where she was singing, I thought that was kind of cool. I'm like, this is fun. This is
Yeah,
fun.
and I was impressed when she just said, I'm curious, what's your name? Like I'm leaning into that. I'm curious. Like that was very playful.
Yeah.
And that was very well designed. So it was also somebody that really understands, communication and linguistics. That's designed the interaction here.
Exactly, because one of the biggest issues with open domain bots is, okay, you need to drive the conversation forward. Well, you need to understand who you're talking to. If the user is being very aggressive, then you're going to want to be more empathetic and listening and go into listen mode. But a lot of times, you need to dictate. You need to be the one driving the conversation in terms of the bot designer. So open domain, they'll ask you a lot of questions. They'll start trying to get information, which is great. And I think that's a great strategy. If the user is just going to say something like, okay, or, that's your chance to maybe prompt them, oh, so have you seen a good movie lately, or are you reading a good book? And I'm like, yeah, well, computers still can't do. But yeah, that was the joke.
Yeah. So people have different conversational styles, right? And your bot has to adjust for that. There's two things that play. There's register, like how do you, in terms of hierarchy, relate to the user. So sometimes you're a bit more dominant versus a bit more passive. Right now, you sort of want to, because technology isn't always great yet, you want to decrease your dependency a little bit on natural language understanding. So it helps to be a bit more dominant, right? Because if I say, ask me any question, you're going to ask me any question. If I say, ask me a question about coffee, I'm a bit more dominant, but you're probably going to ask me a question about coffee, right? And then there's, so that has to do with register. And then there's conversational style. So people have different conversational styles. Greg Bennett at Salesforce is a big fan of this. And he sort of says, some people, when we talk, this is a very New York thing, where they're high in energy. So if I'm talking, you're not interrupting me, it doesn't feel like we're having a conversation, right? You want to be in your face and show that you're engaged. It's a conversational style that a lot of people, particularly men, have. And then there's people that very carefully listen, and then they want to make sure that you have said everything that you want to say. And then there's a pause, and then they will say something, right? So it has to do. There's a bunch of different things in play there, and how do you adjust as a bot is very difficult, like to technically adjust. So it's much easier to just make a decision and sort of frame your experience in such a way that your user just quickly understand that it's easier to just follow along with the program.
Yeah.
Instead of just interrupting all the time.
Yeah, so I was very, very impressed, and I think that if you're going to make an open domain bot, it's a huge undertaking. It's very difficult. You need to narrow it down, like you said, with the prompts, and to sort of drive people, funnel them into a certain direction if you can. And the important thing is that if you do ask them that the coffee question, you say, so what kind of coffee do you like? And they say something unrelated, what happens in terms of context? Do we still continue talking about coffee, or has the thread been cut, and then as the user indicated that, okay, I'm no longer interested in discussing coffee with you, I want to discuss what I just brought up. And so what I do normally is I have this 3 strikes and you're out rule. So I'm having a conversation, and then the user asks a question, I go out, I answer that question, go back into my flow. If they ask another question unrelated, I answer that question, go back to my flow. The third time, I'm like, okay, obviously they're not interested in my conversation. I cut that thread, and the conversation now becomes about whatever they want to talk about. So that's sort of like my 3 strikes and you're out method.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, we usually just treat it as because everybody wants to, everybody that builds tech wants to brag about how well they read context and that they can switch between different topics, which is all great, but when people talk, we often if you're in a coffee shop and you're ordering a coffee and they start asking about the weather, they're probably going to say, okay, let's finish up this coffee thing first, and then we'll talk about the weather, right? So a lot of times we just treat it as a no match, right? And then so just sort of treat it as an error, and then just ask the question that we initially wanted to ask, and just keep them in that flow, unless they're really, changing their mind and want to talk about something else, then we just start from scratch again and start talking about that. But in general, like bragging about how well you switch between different topics, when people do that, I mean, it's insane. You don't want to be talking to people that change their mind every time.
It's hard. It's like talking to someone who has attention deficit disorder. It's like, what are you talking about? Let's talk about something and stick to it.
It's terrible. Yeah, so just treat it as a no match. Bring them back to whatever it is you want to be talking
Yeah.
about.
But to an
Or
extent,
have it completely open and more.
Yeah.
You know, it sort of depends on how far you are in the journey, right? So particularly if you look at enterprise level, if it's in the beginning of a situation and we're just opening up, I mean, people change their mind. They want to talk about whatever they want, right? But as soon as we're sort of engaged in a certain conversation, a certain use case, let's say somebody wants to open an account or something, right? If you say, hey, how can I help you? And they want to talk about the other stuff, that's fine. But as soon as we're in the process of opening an account and they start changing their mind, we're treating it as a no match because we want to continue this conversation because it's in our interest because they might open up an account. But it's also easy because otherwise you're going to lose a lot of value that you've already created earlier in the conversation, right?
It's a dance. It's really a dance. And sometimes the best designers and the best bots are able to do that dance between what the user wants and what the bot is trying to do. Sort of, the two sides get what they're trying to do. So I think you're absolutely right.
With a lot of these things also that people will say something, but I always say it's more important that the user feels heard than that you're actually listening. So sometimes, they say something, you just say, oh yeah, great. And you just continue whatever you wanted to talk about, right? So it becomes much easier and then you don't have to sort of understand everything that they're saying and build models for it. They just want to feel empathy and know that you care and then just create value, I guess.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think that's a good point to end on in terms of reviewing the bots for this week. We did 4 really unique, different types of bots. Each one is different, 2 on text and 2 on voice. So I'm happy to keep on doing this, and I hope that there's viewership and people want us to keep on doing this. If you want us to keep on making these shows, send us bots in the comments.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. I think we should also have a Q&A, and maybe you and I will stick around after we air this on the, and we'll answer questions either on Discord or wherever, or on Slack.
Yeah, so people send in questions, and then in the next episode, we'll just address that as we start. Right. So people are interested in this and that. That'd be great too. Yeah.
But before we end the show, I had one thing I wanted to ask. So I want to give us each one tip for people that are now, let's say, starting out in conversation design. They were deciding, okay, this is what I want to do. What is one thing, in your opinion, that makes a bot good? I'll start and let you think in the meantime. I think, and I said this earlier when I was talking about the horoscope bot, that if you can get your user to smile, laugh, have fun in a conversation, then you've created a good bot. I mean, there may be flaws. No bot is perfect. I have not spoken to a perfect bot yet. They're all flawed. But if you can make someone smile, if you can make someone happy, if you can, do that, then you're halfway there.
That's great. And and as you were talking, I was thinking empathy, really understanding what empathy is, because a lot of people get it wrong. People think empathy is around feelings, but it's around showing that you understand the user situation. If you do that, they'll follow along, right? If you go to a shop, we've got an issue, and you walk in, it's sort of like, I got this and this problem, help me. And then, the clerk says, okay, so you need this and that in order for that to work and blah, blah. You're like, okay, this guy gets me. He understands what my problem is, right? And then I said, okay, let me show you. And then whatever he sort of says, you'll follow along because you feel understood, right? So he'll ask you simple questions like, is it for your TV? Oh, yes. Is it at home? Yeah. Or is it like, so he'll ask a bunch of questions. You just say yes or no, left, right, up, down. You follow him along because there was empathy. You trust that he's going to bring you to the right solution, right? When there's no empathy, when you don't feel understood, you start talking a lot, right? And that's when you start breaking bots. So if you want to have a good conversational experience, make sure that in the beginning of the conversation, the user feels that you understand really what's going on. And if that's the case, like 80% of the problems that you're going to run into later on completely disappear because they'll just follow along.
That is amazing. So amazing. You knocked it out of the ballpark. I wish I had gone second because I would have thought of something way better than what I came up with. Wow. No, it's absolutely true. I mean, what you're saying is, like, if the user does not feel empathy, if they don't feel like they're being listened to, if they feel like they're being ignored, that's it. They end the conversation. Like, they have to have that feeling that they're being listened to, and it's so important, and it's so valuable to have in your bot.
Yeah, and I was thinking one more thing for the next episode might be fun.
Wait, let me guess. We're gonna wear dresses.
We're gonna wear dresses. No,
Okay.
you can.
Sorry,
or I'll just say yes.
I'm just spitballing. Go ahead. Do your idea.
All right. So I was thinking, do I know any chatbots that have ever gone viral? Right? Do I know any? And I was like, no, I don't think any chatbot has ever gone viral. So then I was like, maybe there is a chatbot on virality. Maybe somebody created a chatbot based around a virus. And I was like Googling, maybe there is a virus where people are creating chatbots for. Would there be any? And then I was like, I stumbled upon this thing called COVID. Have you heard of it?
I have no idea what you're talking about. COVID.
So I think I got like 30 requests in like the past 2 weeks for work on COVID chatbots and around the corona and educating people, which is great because I think people need the information. It's great that organizations are reaching for chatbots to actually help people navigate this. But there's probably 100 different corona chatbots out there. So we could do a full episode on COVID, corona chatbots.
I think you're absolutely right. I've talked to some of them. Some of them are better than others, and there's a lot to learn. The question is whether it's not too depressing for the viewers. I mean, they're trying to escape. So do we want to remind them about the corona? Let's leave it up to the viewers. If you guys want to have an episode about corona bots, just about corona bots, we'll do it. Happy to do it. If it's too depressing,
10-hour episode.
10-hour episode, and then if not, let us know. And you know.
No, but it should be good fun.
Flexible.
And again, send in everything. Send in your voice bots. Send in your chat bots. Marketing, customer service, personality, game shows, quizzes, whatever it is that you're working on that is conversational. Share it with us so we can share it with the community, and maybe give you some feedback on it that is going to help you make it better as well. So please do.
Well, Hans, this has been a pleasure. I have to continue my reading. So
you do. Yeah.
So we'll talk next month, next show, next episode.
Next show, next show. How often are we doing this? I guess it depends on the feedback.
Well, tomorrow, I thought. No, I mean, what else do you have to do?
Yeah, that's true. We'll do it like a daily talk show. We're gonna be like the Conan and Colbert of conversational AI.
Which one are you, Colbert or Conan?
I figured I was Colbert.
Well, you kind of have the glasses, which gives you Colbert, and you're also freakishly tall, which gives you the Conan. So you kind of got both, actually. I have more of the Andy Dick from the Conan O'Brien. Remember Andy used to be the sidekick, the stupid sidekick? That would be my job. So
that works. We'll figure it out. But yeah, let's turn this into a regular thing. Should be fun. I hope it's been that people receive it well and that it sort of reaches its destination on the interwebs.
Yeah, me too. All right, everyone, stay safe, stay healthy, wash your hands, wash your face, wash your eyes after this episode. Wash your eyes, and seriously, be safe. It's a jungle out there.
Yeah, it's very terrible. We'll see you soon. Thank you for watching, and we'll be in touch.
And
that's a wrap.
Cut.